everyone to enter the room. Could you please present yourself in the chat, like your name and where you're from, organization, so we can like get to know a little bit each other. So the meeting will be recorded. If you don't want to appear, you just keep your cameras off. And this recording will be used later more like for a bit to broaden our audience and from some learning experience for us as the Fab City Foundation and the Global Initiative. So we're gonna wait one more minute and then we'll start, just everyone is entering the room now.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, if you want to activate the live transcript option in your Zoom, you need to do it manually in your browser of Zoom and click the live transcript button and activate it so that you can see the live transcript and showing up on the bottom of your screen.
Okay, I guess we can start now. And there's still some people entering the room, but they'll join us. So hello, everyone. My name is Carolina Ferro. I'm from Fab City Foundation. So good morning, afternoon, evening. I know we're all around the globe. For me, I'm in Colombia now, so it's after lunch. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. So just one more time, this is being recorded. If you don't want to appear, please leave your cameras off. So this is the kickoff event. This event is hosted by Fab City Foundation. It's the first roundtable of 2022. We're very excited to be the first one of this year. So if you're asking what a roundtable is, a roundtable is about like open discussions on current and trending topics around Fab City. And the idea is that it's open for the entire Fab City Global Initiative to participate. The topic of today will be like platform ecosystem. And before we start, I want to just do a very brief wrap up of 2021, what happened last year. And so we had today, we have a Fab City network of 41 members. So we have 33 cities, 6 regions and 2 countries, Bhutan and Georgia, if someone asks. So we're 41 members and it's a pleasure like to see this growing. And so after the summit in Montreal, we had 3 cities pledging. So we had Montreal, Montpellier in France, and Veberod in Sweden. I hope I got it right, the pronunciation. So also we had 2 roundtables last year. We had the first roundtable regarding network building, and we had the second roundtable about journey map and definition of the first common roadmap. So, and also last year was the first year of the existence, like not officially, the foundation began a little bit before in terms of official documentation, but we started as a team, the Fab City Foundation last year, and it's been a year of structuring and building like the foundation of the Fab City Foundation. So it's very nice to see that this year we are a team, that we have roles, and that we are more prepared to empower this network and do the community building and prepare the summit and everything for. So it's a very exciting year for us. And last but not least, we recovered our YouTube channel. So we're in YouTube again. And we have for the first time our Instagram account. So if you don't follow us yet, please follow. And yeah, and what do we have like for this year? We have some new things coming in. And so we have the MDDI, that's their Master in Design for Distributed Innovation. So it's going to be online, some parts, and in person, other parts, associated with local nodes. So we have already some nodes, Puebla, Lima, Barcelona, Paris, Shanghai, Bali, and some nodes that are still going to join us this year. If I don't mistake, it will start in September, October, our first like ever MDDI, or Master in Design and Distributed Innovation. So this is, we're very proud and also excited with this master. And also just for you to understand how we're going to function a little bit this year, we have this new format of roundtables. That's the one that we're now, and we're also having some working groups that we're going to promote. The roundtable is more like current and trending topics and open discussion with experts also guiding this discussion. And the working groups are more like hands-on to work on a topic and go more in deep discussion. And so the network can share some knowledge and come up with some outputs together. So this is a little bit the format that we're going to work this year. So you're going to hear about us and receive emails inviting for roundtables and working groups. And the last announcement, I would say, it would be that the next summit would be in Bali in person if everything goes well with the pandemic situation. So Fab City Summit 2022, it's going to be in Bali, so get prepared. And so I'm going to just go through what the agenda of today. I'm just preparing here to share with you the agenda so we can go through it. Share my screen. Can everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. So today, I'm clicking and it's going there. Okay. So we're going to start with our expert talk about platform ecosystem. First to present will be Alysia from Materiom. Followed by Enrico from OpenDotLab and Emilio from Appropedia. We're going to have some time for questions and answers. And then we're going to have the presentation of the Interfacer project by Fab City Hamburg and the Interfacer team. And after the presentation, we're also going to have some time for questions and answers. And then Ida from Fab City Foundation will present to you the open call to participate in the Interfacer working groups, and she will explain what that means afterwards. And then we're going to have a closing moment. So let's, without further delay, let's start with their expert talk. So I'm going to call Alysia from Materiom to start her presentation, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Carolina. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm just going to share my screen and navigate to my presentation. Okay. Okay, so my name is Alysia Garmulewicz. I'm a co-founder and director of Materiom together with Liz Corbin. And I'm really excited to be able to present the latest in our ecosystem development at Materiom. It's been a while in the development in terms of the visioning process. And now what's really exciting is this past year, with the support of google.org, we're now scaling a lot in terms of being able to get the team needed to build the infrastructure that we've been working away at slowly. We're now able to do it at about 10 times as fast. So it's going to be a really exciting year at Materiom. So the ambition of Materiom is really to take inspiration from the natural world, look at how in nature there's no such thing as as waste and look at how we can develop an ecosystem of materials that can incentivize more people in more places to enter the market and provide materials at a local level that are made from sources of abundant biomass. And so broadly speaking, we're looking at incentivizing and enabling the shift from a very centralized linear model of supply chains where petrochemicals are dug up from the ground, made into products and exported globally, to a regenerative, more distributed approach whereby biomass at a local or regional level is utilized to make materials that feed into product ecosystems that hopefully go into the Fab City framework of being able to be cycled within that ecoregion. So that's what we're trying to provide, and Materiom's niche in that whole transition is to basically provide a data
Lock the door behind me, the front door.
To provide an open access information source for material recipes and their properties to better enable more people in more places to commercialize and get new material alternatives on the market, or even just make them at a local level and develop them into products. And specifically, we're looking at materials that are not from first generation biomass. So we know now that a lot of biomass, say for instance, corn or soy, et cetera, competes for arable land for food, has a lot of water stress related to it, and also has carbon emissions from land use change associated. And so we're looking at more the palette of materials that come from waste, that come from secondary sources, algae biomass, for instance, that can be cultivated in the ocean, and that is a large carbon sink. These kind of material sources are incredibly powerful as a regenerative engine of change. And so I'll briefly just detail what the platform is about. Number one, it's about this open infrastructure that anyone anywhere will be able to contribute to. We are specifically lowering barriers to contribution so that anyone can, for instance, replicate a material and add that to the data, or they can do a measurement of an existing recipe. They can do a replication of a sample of one part of, say, testing just mechanical strength of a recipe and add that data. And so we're trying to develop the infrastructure to enable people all over the planet to test, develop, and work on material systems together, so to speed up and accelerate the innovation process. We are also working with Super Labs in Greece by Philippos Termolosis, who's developing an autonomous materials platform for robotic testing and characterization and of biomaterials specifically. And so that will be a hardware layer that will enable basically the cost per data point to go down massively when we're talking about material testing. And so that is one element of open sourcing and distributing access to material testing technology that is going to kind of power this whole ecosystem. And one thing I'll mention as well is a recent thing for Materiom is that we're focusing a lot on data mining this year. So we've got a partnership with Iris AI, who mines the scientific literature through natural language processing. And so we're loading the Materiom database, which is the MVP should be coming out this next year, with hopefully around 50 to 70,000 articles. That's just the open access corpus. We hopefully will be able to make relationships that open up the articles behind paywall. But that should get us to scale in around, we're hoping around 100 to 200,000 formulations that can be put online and put together, and then that data layer can really enable you to see what kind of materials can replace petroleum plastics and across numerous product niches. As I mentioned, the community innovation aspect, we want to enable people to see how the kind of lineage of how their recipe is inspiring others to either build on their recipe and fork it, so to speak. So that kind of open source mentality. And we're really focusing on the data principles of FAIR, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data, and really embedding those practices and principles in the Materiom infrastructure, so that basically through APIs, through search, any part of the data, the data ecosystem will be able to be indexed, will be able to be cited, and easily findable. And the other aspect that I mentioned with the autonomous platform is really helping to provide the mechanisms to optimize on those formulations. So there's a whole world, like the design space of developing a material, for anyone who's tried it, is just massive. It's like cooking, you know, if you change one ingredient or some sort of temperature that you're cooking with, it can just radically change the performance of your material. And so navigating that design space is really, really time intensive and very laborious. And so what we're doing with the autonomous platform that Filipos is building, as well as the AI tools that we're embedding in the platform, is enabling people to better search and quickly identify formulations of interest. So using that machine learning layer to narrow in on formulations that meet your specific product needs. And the goal, as I mentioned, is just to get more people commercializing great materials that are currently popping up in the SME space, as well as just being able to, you know, the future, we hope, of materials is a decentralized local or regional supply chain network where you can source whatever materials you need for your packaging, for your construction, for your textiles, et cetera. And so we're looking to support anyone who's interested in kind of that entrepreneurial effort. This is our team. It's growing actually by the moment. We have 3 new hires that are not on the slide last week, but the team is really growing in strength and capability. So it's going to be an exciting couple of years ahead of us. And our strategic partners, these are some of them as well. And this year we're doing a whole revamp of in lead up to our launch, likely in January 2023. So this is a big build year for us. And thank you again for the time. And I'd love to field questions during the question period. And I look forward to the other presentations. Thank you.
Alysia, thank you so much. Thank you. So following Alysia, I will call Enrico Bassi, he's Director of OpenDotLab. Enrico, are you ready?
Well, hello, everyone. It's super nice to be here. I've seen so many known names in the chat, and it's a pity we are not in the same place, actually. But still very good. I'd like to talk to you about one of the solutions that we developed in OpenDot during the last period. And that's actually connected with a European project called Reflow, in which many of you are involved, at least the European part of the Fab City network. It's interesting because it's really enabled by the idea that a sort of platform, what we call Reflow OS, can be common for everybody, and then you can build on a common technology, something that is distributed, as we like to say. So this is our space as a Fab Lab in Milan. Some of you actually passed by, open space. We like to mix different things. We got the pleasure to have Materiom as one of our guests for a workshop recently. So if you pass by Milan, just let us know. The project is called Botto, fun name to represent an automatic system that simplifies donations of food. So we are working together with the general markets in Milan, that is the largest market in Italy. Every day they have something like 2,000 tons of food passing by. A small amount actually get wasted because it's not easy to sell because of a lot of different reasons, but it's still very often good food that could be eaten. So what happened is that the local wholesalers donate this food sometimes to local associations that collects it, and it's then distributed to families through the Italian Red Cross. So this operation is kind of complex and is really done manually. So our objective was to simplify it, solve some of the issues that was along the process, and track data in the wild, of course. The culture of data, it's really something that we have to push to enable changes that are actually based not on opinions, but on real informations. We engage a lot of different stakeholders, and that's also interesting, to see how you can exchange knowledge on the global level, but then you have to build networks locally as well to enable some kind of changes. And this is the solution. It's basically an IoT device that can send a notification to a Telegram bot. So the wholesalers use the IoT device because it's easier for them. Not everybody is familiar with technologies. The app is not the best thing. You don't want to handle your phone while you're bringing around the fruit, and maybe you're wearing gloves. While in this way, through a simple interface, you can communicate your donation. So this is the device. It's based on ESP, and it communicates on this ReflowOS, this platform that it's shared among the entire pilots of the project. I have a video that should be kind of easy to follow and explain everything. So the wholesalers can choose if they want to donate something. Instead of calling the guy of the associations, they just select what they want through the interface. They select the quantity, the amount of boxes. They don't use kilos at this level because the quantity is so big. And when the donation is sent, this message gets to the Telegram bots of the association. At this point on the Telegram bot, you get a notification. These notifications can be accepted or rejected. The associations are not always in the general market. Sometimes they need to reject the donations, unfortunately. So if they accept the donation, they can go there and actually record the products in details inside the platform, inside the ReflowOS. So saying how many boxes they received and who donate them. This is very important because we're trying to implement also the legal part of it. So trying to create discounts for the people that donate food. There's actually a law in Milan that allows this. But it's so complex and there's so much paperwork that basically nobody wants to do that. After they collect the vegetables, they sort them out. Some vegetables are still good, some are not. So this selection gives us an extra layer of data, how much you have to throw away. When everything is sorted, then you can post these donations, hoping for association to collect it. For instance, the Red Cross, as we said. And in this case, the Red Cross receive a second notification on a different bot in Telegram, just because there are different groups of people who operates within the general market and who operates outside of it. If they accept it, this layer of information get added to the transaction. They can go to collect it, and at that point, when they physically collect the donations, the association can mark it down. Just to don't spend too much time on this, I'm sorry to cut the end of it. If you're interested, there's all the details of all the informations collected in every step and what kind of data get collected. But that's, something not necessarily fundamental to get here. What's fascinating is that during the first day of test, that was actually today, the volunteers collected 2,000 kilos of food. And that's just impressive when you think about it. And this is enabled, again, by a global technology and a local network that participate in it. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Enrico. Thank you so much. You and Alysia, thank you for the great presentation and overview of both projects. Thank you so much. So now I'll pass the word to Emilio Velis. He's Executive Director of Appropedia. So Emilio, happy to have you here today with us.
Thanks so much. My presentation goes on the line of talking a little bit about the recent work that we've done over the past 2 years. And just to start with the shameless plug, Appropedia is a wiki for sustainability, international development. And one of the challenges that I had when I started as executive director was that there was too much content and I didn't know what to do with it. And it's always difficult to bring in information to people when they need it. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the developments that have happened over the past years. It's been around since 2005 and there's thousands of pages. We're getting closer to 2,000 solutions, specifically project pages, but there are many, many more types of pages. And that is one of the things that we realized, that there are projects there's knowledge embedded, there's files, so there's a multiplicity of varied content. But before, I want to speak a little bit about platform ecosystems. And when I think of it, Appropedia is the space for people to bring in their pet projects. And so I wanted to talk about pets and how when you get a pet at home, it's tiny, you don't know whether it will grow into being a nice cat or an evil one. And that's very similar with projects. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's hard to forecast whether it's going to be a good project or not. And that is the first problem that the platform or the ecosystem of platforms has to deal with, whether we're going to have a good project that makers bring in and how will we potentiate them. And then the second one is how will we have the project grow and have smaller little projects, that is a fork, someone reproducing a project in a different part of the world. And that is one of the key challenges that we have ahead in terms of platforming. So those two are impact, improving the quality of the documentation of the solutions, bringing people into the right direction. And the second one is reproducibility. And there's a lot of discussion on academia, in practice, on platforms about those two issues. So I want to talk about how Appropedia is dealing with it. First, we've done a lot of different projects over the years, documenting all sorts of projects, and this information is unstructured. So one of the questions that we brought forth was, how can we organize this information in a way that makes sense? This is one example of a knowledge ontology that we built for the Global Surgical Training Challenge, which contains training modules for surgical procedures, but also open hardware and also educational videos, etc. So all of this together, we try to interconnect the open world into the unit of projects, but also pages that are on Appropedia. So how can we bring in the external world, represent it, and then make it reproducible so that another person in another part of the world can build, right? And that is some of the work that we've done with many people. Enrico has been part of the work of the Internet of Production Alliance with the Open Know-how Standard and others. And we've taken a little bit of that and added some flavor on Appropedia so that people can document reproducible content that they can take because it's their own, right? So it's like having your pet, but your cat sometimes goes away and they do whatever they want, right? So it's the same. We want to have free range projects that they come in, they go out, and that's the value of the ecosystem over single platforms, that makers can own the knowledge, platforms can bring in value, and then the payoff goes beyond. And inside of the platform, we see this as in all of the multiplicity of projects that are being reproduced, forked, edited. People look at a project and think, I can do something similar, but not all, even within the Fab Labs, there are differences because the material world is like that. So we try to bring in this in creating it, creating some sort of value from it. And then we tried to expand the ecosystems. One example is the Global Surgical Training Challenge. We have right now 13 training modules that have all sorts of different materials to teach practitioners how to perform procedures using low-cost simulators. This is one example built in Guatemala, which is from one of the winning modules. And then another one, which is for tibial fracture fixation, which I don't know what it is, but they do, and that is the important thing. They have different models of organizing their own knowledge, and we just help them, and then they can take it off. Work with other platforms. We're bringing in mentors, so everyone can work within the platform, but also with the other partners, which are NASA Challenges, the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, MIT Solve. And then another type of working with platforms is when people come in for short bursts. One example is the work that we're doing with Fashion Revolution all over Latin America to build maps. And we have older women from Argentina who are coming in, showing their knowledge and transferring it. And then platform synergy, which might be more interesting in terms of hardware. We're building right now a way to communicate with the OSHWA API to automate the certification. So that's one of the projects that we have. And then to end, we're working with the Open Know-how Working Group to create a search engine for hardware, and we have some of the projects on Appropedia. We invite you to use some of our standards. And then finally, Lush, which is a library for open source hardware, right? So the final thought is this tweet that I saw of a cat that was sending, like the owners were receiving messages on the color of the cat. And I believe that that's the kind of projects that we want, to go in, go out from different platforms and build value. So.
Perfect, Emilio, thank you so much. It's very interesting. We have 3 very interesting projects going on. Like, everyone was amazed and surprised, I think, with the information we got. I just wanted to ask if anyone wants to raise their hands, or if you can put also your questions here in the chat and then we can address them. But if anyone is brave to start and raise their hands, then we can ask questions and or debate or exchange experiences. I don't know.
Break glass, maybe?
Sorry?
I can break the glass if no one goes.
Yes, please go for it.
The question is more for the platform of Materiom. I saw on your visual that you have some comparison with carbon footprint with the material. Is it something that it will be centralized? Like, I was searching not long ago some information about the carbon footprint of different kind of material using in our Fab Labs or in our industry. Is that something that you plan to introduce, or?
Yeah, we do. We're kicking off a work package on that right now. Liz will be leading that, and we're focusing on a couple of aspects. One is the impact of sourcing and understanding how to develop a regenerative sourcing practices for biomaterials. So, for instance, making sure that you're not over extracting any given source ecosystem, making sure you have the metrics involved to know that the kind of volume you're extracting is not harming any kind of biodiversity, or is actually enriching, hopefully, the ecosystem in terms of the end of life going back into nutrients, for instance. So there's kind of some metrics around sourcing that are really important there. And then the other aspect of kind of a larger scorecard that we're looking to build out is going to be, the metrics around carbon emissions, water scarcity impact, what are the other ones? Biodiversity. So we want to do it as comprehensively as possible, but it's definitely going to be a kind of feedstock by feedstock question. And we definitely need to develop a lot of partnerships with people with organizations and experts in these areas to be able to index and develop the kind of accounting system necessary for people to be able to then use it. So it's a massive, massive challenge, but it's 100% necessary if we're going to ensure that a bio-based economy is regenerative by design. So we're not only like trying to do that kind of as a program, we're also trying to develop the infrastructure to be able to do the materials screening and kind of do it in an automated way. So hopefully like we'll have to do it super manually to begin with, but we want to be able to kind of like load it in as a service that people can like, you know, chuck in the materials of interest and then understand where are the ways that they should source it, what are the kind of issues that they should be aware of, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's super important.
Huge
Thanks
work.
for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would anyone like to go next? And also for our speakers, if you would like to put something like in debate or just complement something that I know we gave you a very short time to present. So also if you want to put more like things for everyone to debate about, feel free.
I actually put a question in the chat.
Yeah,
Hi,
Giselle.
This
I
is
saw.
Giselle from Düsseldorf. And it's another question from Materiom, really. Working in traditional bobbin lace and front, very interested in. Oh, thanks. Great. Yeah, so when I bought the Nitorite kind of on Kickstarter, must have been 5 years ago or something, my vision was, yes, we can, you know, make our own fibers and we can knit everything, and that's fantastic, and we need a platform, distributed production, da, da, da. Well, none of this works if we use traditional fiber because it needs to be industrial. But would Materiom be a platform where we can, you know, try to make another material? I mean, like locally sourced.
Yes, that's precisely the kind of recipes that we will be putting online. So we're trying to develop it'll be searchable by application as well. So, and by process technology. So if you want to use it in a knitting machine, or if you want a 3D printable bio ink, for instance, or if you want something with a specific strength, tensile strength, or elastic modulus, that kind of, or barrier properties for packaging, all of that information we're aiming to be indexable so that you can actually search on that basis. So yes, I hope that in the next couple of years, you'll be able to search and find some great materials for starting out with.
Okay, great, thanks.
And anyone else would like to go next? And or maybe share their experience with their platforms, or there's a question here from Peter. How will these wonderful bottom-up initiatives be connected with the 40+ Fab City network nodes, which are more city council-based top-down? Okay.
Tell you my experience if you want.
That would be great, Enrico, because yeah, we have like two different models, right? Like bottom up, top down, and how to do this governance. Now, if you have some experience to exchange there, that would be great.
Yeah. So what we developed, this example on food waste, is actually a connection between two things, because you have the management of the entire area plus the municipality, because the area is partially public. And on the other hand, you have volunteers and bottom-up people that try to solve a problem. At the beginning, when we explained what we wanted to do to the municipality, not the party involved in the European project, another part of the municipality, they were very doubtful about the fact that this was even possible. I will spare you the comments that they said, because they were not exactly polite on the level of culture of these people. So this is just to give you an idea of the opinion that they had. The point is that things get solved by themselves when they saw something working. So I think that the great capability of putting together top-down approaches and bottom-up approaches comes from the fact that Fab Labs make things that are real. At that point, even the people that are usually very top-down and they are doubtful about bottom-up initiatives, they see the potential of it and they change the approach. So they opened up, they became more cooperative, they understood the potential, they explained the limitation in the policies that they were making, and we started to discuss how to improve on those. And I think that this practical approach is really what makes us different from other initiatives that might have something in common with networks of cities.
Great, thank you so much. I think this is the Fab City approach, no? Having all these layers that you go from bottom up, top down, and making these connections. So I think this is the challenge of the whole of the full stack and the Fab City approach, also how in different layers we can develop and integrate. So yeah, so we have more questions here. We have one for Emilio from Appropedia, from Dean Rose. Are you still updating your activities through the Fab Labs IO site? Or how do we follow your progress?
So I'd like to just jumping a little bit on the previous question as well. And I think that one platform can't do everything, right? And that is one of the things that we've learned, and that also comes from the question from Carlos. Like, that is one of the things that I've learned in terms of platform, that it's always good to work together with other people and their value propositions of different platforms. What we are trying to do with organizing information on an ontology is to point to specialized platforms that can do something better than we might, right? So we want people to use Appropedia, for example, as a knowledge dump on which they can organize their ideas, where they have different projects. You know, you can go to this. We have our 3D printing files in this direction. We've done this, and we put all of that together and build knowledge products. So that's our initial idea. Right now, we're working on a project with the UNDP, trying to connect the SDGs and knowledge products that can be very simple and point out to different platforms. So that's something that would go in that direction. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I'm sorry, Alysia, I didn't realize you had your hands raised.
It's okay. No, and it's all right. I'll just say something briefly on that question, because I thought it was a good one with respect to the top-down, bottom-up aspect of Fab City. And just by way of illustration, I think of the importance of the top-down, bottom-up approach meeting is that through our work in the Reflow project, as Emilio alluded to, there we have been working to index biomass from unavoidable food waste, and specifically index the volumes of biopolymers that can be derived from those food waste. So, for instance, the amount of cellulose, amount of pectin, those kind of chitosan, those kind of compounds that you can derive from various types of mixed unavoidable food waste. And for those data sets to actually be accessible, usable, and then you can hopefully scale it beyond the level of one city, we need to have the buy-in of policymakers. We need to have those that resolution at a municipal level, as well as a national and then international level. So the models that we've been using and referring to and actually getting data from integrate those levels. And so it's an example of, like, we want to use that data in a kind of bottom-up approach, but the data gathering and the availability of it is incredibly important to be able to interface and work with policymakers at the level of the city and even at higher levels as well.
Great, thank you. I think this is a question that like very transversal, that inform different perspectives. We can share how we manage these like integrate these both approaches. We have some questions. We have 2 questions for Materiom. We also have a question for Emilio, I think from Carlos Valladares. He asks Emilio, like, in your experience in workshops of open knowledge, which is the initial assumptions that you discover of the ontological approach of catalogization, I think it's catalogization in data documentation in terms of standards, he asks, Carlos.
Oh wow.
Oh wow, it was hard for me to read.
No, but it's a deep question as well. I think,
yeah,
like, I would come up with a really simple answer. I probably, the other speakers know a lot more. But one thing that I find very practical to think is that there is knowledge that can be, it's numerical, it's been mechanized, we can measure, we can compare, but there's other types of knowledge that comes more from experience. For example, a project has been built. Why did you build it? And sometimes as makers, some platforms just leave a space for saying, hey, I did this as a project for my child, or I did this because I just wanted to test, et cetera, but there's a lot of insight in knowing the why of projects. So there's this teleological approach to project design that we must not leave behind when we are starting to index all of the information of the work, people around the world. Yeah, and I think it creates value to know why they do it, and it can also be compelling for other people, because what we want with all of these ideas in the end is for other people to say, hey, I want to do this, I want to work with you and I want to reproduce, etc. And that is something really hard. There are very, very good projects out there, and people are not necessarily reproducing. So we have to think of ways of doing that. So there's still an approach that has to be of, compelling, very human.
Thank you so much. We have a question here for Alysia from Robin. Is there any ontology that could already be used now, like describing the data that later can be searched in your system? Example, fabric has tensile strength.
Yeah, so we've been developing the data schemas for the last year that will be embedded in the platform, and we've intentionally been building on representations of data that are in use in the material science community, as well as other communities in the kind of open data or fair data landscape. And so we're specifically building on schema.org, which uses a lot of the kind of metadata types in order to, so there's a lot of things that are so the same. If you're, for instance, schema.org has a whole thing on like cooking or time stamping and stuff like that. So instead of like rebuilding all of that from scratch, we've been kind of by bricolage kind of putting them all together and then tailoring it for our purposes. So certainly we do have this data schemas ready, and we're also going to be adapting those according to how the platform's used and the types of data that is added that users want to add, etc. So it's by far, not a finished project, but it is something that I would be happy to share if anyone wants to see the schemas that we've been working on.
Robin is saying, great, awesome. Please.
Yeah, please reach out if you want, is Alysia at materiom.org.
And we can leave your email here also, like all of your emails, so people can reach out later on. So also we have another question for you, Alysia, from Catherine. Would Catherine like to add? Sorry, I have some. I can read it, but also who
If you want, I can maybe just tell because
so we can see new faces, please.
Okay, I hope you can hear me because I recently had some microphone problems. I just wanted to note that at the Fashion and Technology Institute, which belongs to the Arts University in Linz, they now have Miriam Eichinger and another guy, Emmanuel Golub, and they're doing amazing research, like really creating fabric out of cellulose. And they are now in cooperation with the Johannes Kepler University. They now already have a prototype for really kind of a linen cloth. It's really amazing. So I think maybe we should get in touch, because they just asked us if we know somebody who would be interested in a residency, maybe.
Fantastic.
Which would be financed. So yeah, let's get
I'd love to connect. Thank you very much. That's great to hear.
Thank you both. Thank you, Katrin. It's nice to see also your faces and hear your voices. So that's very nice. We have a question also here. How does Appropedia compare with instructables.com for Emilio?
We're much more chaotic in one sense, because Appropedia is not simply a list of steps of how to do things. It is one of the components or types of knowledge that you can bring in. So there is, our unit is a project, which is in a higher level. So a project, for example, can be coupled and say, we built 3 devices for this project. So we're trying to build that. We decoupled the ontology of open know-how in a way that we could put together all of these things. Like we can say there's a project that has different instances with different material devices, and we're trying to organize them all together. But there's also skill knowledge. So we're trying to also we have an ontology for skills and say, you can learn this by using this device in this project. So yeah, so we are a little bit more chaotic. And then the other is that our focus is a lot on appropriate technology. That's why it's Appropedia. So there's lots of low tech, very connected to projects international development, industry and academia, open science. So yeah, there are some differences, and as a matter of fact, some projects on Appropedia also we try to point to instructables. Like if you want to learn how to do whatever, you can go, and we have spaces for links on that. One of our recent projects, for example, just to give you an insight, is that we're trying to build upon some of the work of the Green Web Foundation on carbon emissions of websites. We're trying to map organizations and add, this is a project that I'm doing as a fellow for the foundation, and to create some portals we already have portals for organizations, but we want to have sustainability data added to it, and that they can be collaborative, etc. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. If I would ask Emilio, Enrico, and Alysia if they're okay with it, if they could share their emails in the chat. So if for new questions, and also like to see these synergies developing. So, and I would like to thank you so much for these great presentations. For me, it was great to learn more about Materiom and about the project. That's super interesting. And Appropedia, I've been researching a lot already, because I'm a knowledge coordinator here in Fab City Foundation. And Emilio, I'll be writing to you soon so we can discuss a little bit. And so thank you so much for everyone that's been we have 87 people here participating, listening, sending their questions. So we're very grateful. So we're going to start the next session, and I'll pass the word to Ida, and she was going to present a little bit before the interfacer team starts presenting their project. But once again, thank you so much, all of you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning from your corner of the world. Thank you very much for the very inspirational expert talk, Alysia, Enrico, and Emilio. I think we will reach out very soon, especially as now our topic is very in-depth with platform ecosystems, and we're researching on it. And as I see, based on the discussion around topics, and also they ask questions, I see similarities to actually our next part of today's roundtable. As Carolina already mentioned, it's the Interfacer project, And I think some of you have heard already about it or have read about it through the shared links that we shared basically for the newsletters the past weeks. Yeah, so long story short, we'll pass to the team of Interfacer and Fab City US, which will be represented today by Benedict from Fab City Hamburg and from Peter from HiVV. Correct me if I'm wrong, both from Interfacer team. And yeah, Benedict, I think we're very curious to listen to your presentation of the Interfacer.
Thanks, Ida. Yeah, I'm glad to have this chance to present the Interfacer project here, and let's start. Okay, yeah, I'm Benedict from Fab City Hamburg Association, and we, as the name says, are located in Hamburg. For those of you who don't know, Hamburg is the second largest city of Germany. It is for some known by its harbor. Hamburg joined the Fab City network in 2019. It has a legal entity, Fab City Hamburg Association, which has now 15 employees. And it has 18 member organizations, which are universities, labs, small, medium enterprises, startups, NGOs. One of those startups has created this circular jacket here. So that's for those of you who wonder where you can get those cool clothes. In Fab City Hamburg, we have producing these things. And today I'll talk mainly about Interfacer project, but we have another project in Hamburg, which is called Detect BW Fab City. And there we develop physical infrastructure also. And I'll briefly talk about that before we go into the digital infrastructure project Interfacer. So the Detect BW Fab City project is led by the Helmut Schmidt University. It has a consortium of 4 universities, all based in Hamburg, lasts for 4 years, and has a budget of 9 million euros. It has a focus on research and open production and decentralized labs, and more than 15 PhDs are working full-time on it. The main outcome of the of the project is the OpenLab Starter Kit, which is a set of machinery or low-cost modular and replicable machines. One of them is part of that is you see on the right side here is a laser cutter, and other machines are all the machines you need to start a Fab Lab. And that's all open source hardware, so you can easily replicate it in your Fab City. Then the other project is the Interfacer project, talking about it mainly today, which is funded by the European Union, consists of 4 consortium partners, 6 associated partner organizations, and around 30 people working on it on a daily basis. A budget of 5 million euros and lasting for around 2 years. The main focus is digital infrastructure, so we develop software, outreach and international collaboration, and as well as research. And now I'd like to hand over to Peter Hamer for telling you some specific aspect of the Interfacer project.
Thank you, Benedict. Yeah, so if we can summarize the main object of the Interfacer project is perhaps this transition from product in, trash out to data in, data out. So I'm sure you're all familiar with. But to accomplish this, we require to have a digital infrastructure to support this. So, one of the major outcomes of this project will be Fab City OS, and it allows you to, it's a digital infrastructure that allows you to share data to produce goods, to produce them locally. Next slide, please. And we are really targeting the full stack of the Fab City Global Initiative with the Interfacer project, starting from this bottom layer, the distributed infrastructure, and enabling this knowledge sharing and an open source circular economy. Next slide, please. And another very important focus point of the Interfacer project is the open source philosophy, point 9 of the Fab City manifesto. And this enables communication and collaboration And we're not only focusing on open source software, so Fab City OS, for example, is going to be open source software, but also on open source hardware in combination with the DTEC project that Benedict has just talked about. So this is a very brief overview of the Interfacer project. And now we're going to dive into two of the outcomes of the project, not all of the outcomes, but just two. First, a foundation to support the open source hardware ecosystem. I will talk about that for the next couple of minutes. And then I will hand back the floor to Benedict, who will make the Fab City OS more concrete for you. So next slide, please. So in the Interfacer project, we will going to set up a new foundation for the open source hardware ecosystem. What do we mean by that? Well, thinking about open source hardware, most people associate it with the end product. Here you can see, for example, the Fabulator, part of the OpenLab starter kit. But actually, there is a large software layer behind it. Lots of software, computer-aided design programs, as you can see here. And that is what we mean here with the open source hardware ecosystem. So the software layer behind it. So why a foundation to support this? Next slide, please. Well, I can explain this in terms of the Fab City manifesto. So if we focus on globalism, sharing this global knowledge between cities, well, to make this happen, it needs access to tools to make this possible. So to support really this data in, data out requires accessible tools. And an open source software ecosystem for open source hardware makes this possible. Next slide, please. And then the open source philosophy is also very important, especially in the context of open data. Actually, if you think of it, open source hardware itself is open data. And the fact that it's open data, it really makes it possible to exchange the data to produce goods globally, to produce them locally. So the fact that we use open source hardware is also very important. Next slide, please. And then another important part is this number 2 of the Fab City manifesto, this inclusive policy. The software ecosystem for open source hardware currently relies for a large part of proprietary software, which is very expensive or has unclear licensing, and it's really not accessible to anyone. And to be able to exchange these designs and make hardware design and manufacturing accessible to anyone, it is important to have an open source software ecosystem for open source hardware, giving access to anyone regardless of age, gender, income levels, and capabilities. So this is the why behind it. So what are we going to do? Next slide, please. So we're going to set up a new foundation to support this open source hardware ecosystem. It will have an innovative legal structure and a business model focused on fundraising. And we will allocate those funds for high impact software development fields in this context. And we want to actively support the open source hardware ecosystem community. So in short, it's going to be an organization to support a dynamic ecosystem for open source hardware based on an open source software toolchain. So here you can see my email address, and feel very welcome to provide feedback, concerns, ideas. You can see it as simply a letterbox where you can put ideas. And yeah, thank you for your attention. And I will now hand back the floor to Benedict that will make the Fab City OS more concrete for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. All right, so the Fab City OS stands for Fab City Operating System. It is software for coordinating Fab cities to foster distributed design and local manufacturing. It is based on a fork of Reflow OS, which we have been talking about here before. And what I will show you in the next slide are some application on this base layer of this operating system that we will develop within the Interfacer project that are serve specifically the need of Fab cities. So there's some other applications and that we will develop, which I won't show here. And what I will show now is just a preliminary version of the specific details and functionalities that we will have, but it'll get you a better idea than much of the theoretical talk. So as I said, we think of it as having being an operating system. So you have different applications you can use on it, which what I will talk about today is a so-called knowledge hub application, a configurable web page for local Fab cities, content management system, the stakeholder city map, a ticketing system, tools for distributed design and manufacturing, the chat and connect functionality, and yeah, we could talk about Fab City OS from a different perspective, more on the technology that is beyond it. Look up Zenroom, design material passports, value flows ontology, token and payment technology. Then you will see what is kind of under the hood of Fab City OS. And there's a design principle, which is true for all elements of the Fab City operating system, which is federated. It is also self-hosted and interconnected in free and open source software. So what does federated mean? Federated means it is not centralized software, as it is in as Amazon or Facebook, where you have entities in the back end controlling everything, central entities like the companies behind software, behind Amazon and Facebook. This is not the case with Fab City OS, because Fab City OS is hosted by the different nodes of the network, which can be Fab cities. So each Fab City kind of downloads the software, installs it on a local server, and is connected to the whole network, can collaborate on all different kinds of information, knowledge, and production tools, but is still sovereign over the data it needs to produce locally. So you have the governance locally, you can really, you're not under the power of some big central corporation. One of the applications that will be interesting for Fab cities is a so-called content management system for Fab City OS. So that's basically a landing page, a web page for Fab cities. So here with the example for Fab City Atlantis. So you would have this page here, like this could be so you look on Google for Fab City Atlantis, and this is what you will probably find first. And you see, of course, the logo. And now there can be many different types of users coming here. So this can be local companies being interested in engaging in your production ecosystem, wanting to sell Fab City products or see what is out there in terms of Fab City products, or it be customers who want to have Fab City products by Fab City washing machines or any other type or something like this jacket. It can be interested civil people that have no specific interest in products, but more maybe want to learn something. So we have clustered these different user categories into four categories, which we call a knowledge hub, which is an application itself, labs and companies, basically a map, designs and products, and chat and connect functionality. Then we have, talking about it later, a shop, Fab City shop, an application, an app store, and a login functionality, so you can have profiles. Then we have like a local highlights section where the local Fab City can put up whatever it wants to highlight to its users. So in this case, it can be the Fab City Atlantis vision or anything else. And it could be the ticketing system, highlighting workshops and events that are taking place in Fab City Atlantis, where people can engage with the Fab City. And then we also propose to have a distributed design from Fab City OS, or as we call it internally, FCOS section, where from the open source hardware documentation, the product designs that are saved kind of in the global federated network. Yeah, there's some of them highlighted here, and then you can access them and see the source files, all you need to replicate that machinery. Go into detail about that sorry, a little later. And then there could be a global section where the Fab City Foundation could insert content that it wants all Fab cities to display on their web pages. Okay, so you see again these 4 functionalities in the navigation bar, and just briefly showing you here the App Store. So basically, for example, we also developed the Fab City Index application. That is an idea from Fab City Paris, also developed by the company Utopie, which we will kind of digitalize and enable Fab cities to thereby measure their progress in terms of the Fab City idea. How much of what they consume locally do they already produce themselves? And now we are here on the designs and products section, and displaying this example product of a Fab washing machine. So this is documentation that is on the federated network. So all Fab cities can access it and see if there's local manufacturers that manufacture it and sell it, or also in collaboration with local e-commerce stores. So there you can go on this web page or on this page, again, with different user backgrounds. And depending on which user background you have, you're interested in different things. So if you're just a customer, you want to buy maybe this washing machine from a local company, which has previously agreed to manufacture and sell it. But we also, which we do in Hamburg, and with Appropedia, then you know that we also favor open source hardware build workshops where you build these machines yourselves, or those products, so you can repair them more easily, for example. If a Fab city, let's say, does not have local manufacturers or build workshops for this Fab washing machine, then citizens could signal a demand for that, and thereby giving local companies the signal that there's a demand economically for that. Okay, one other thing I want to highlight here is the design share. So you can also here access the repository where these files are, or the documentation is saved, and suggest an improvement of that design. Maybe you want to have another glass here that is better. So you can suggest that. And if it gets accepted by the ones who own the repository, then you will, if it later on gets sold and the product based on that documentation, you will get a share of that that price. So there's a business model for open source hardware documentation development in a distributed way. And so this 10% design share indicates that when you, as a manufacturer, manufacture that locally and sell it, then you have 10% of your revenue to the designers. And who the designers are is saved on a blockchain. We call it Design Passport. Okay. Then another application is the Knowledge Hub, which is kind of a set of pages also on the Fab City Global Federated Network. And Fab City Atlantis, in this case, could have a pre-selection of different pages. So that can be anything, kind of like Appropedia. It can be based on Markdown files, stuff, the wiki from Precious Plastic, or it can be the Fab City manifesto. It can be documentation on how you run a build workshop, anything. So that way you can share, we can share knowledge efficiently among Fab cities, and we would cluster it according to the structure of the full stack of the Fab City Foundation. So you can find stuff more easily. Then the Labs and Companies section is basically a map. Clicking on it leads you to different profiles. Getting to the profiles of the Fab City OS federated network, which I briefly mentioned before. here the Curious Community Lab, local lab in Hamburg, okay, could be in this case, should be Atlantis, could here also offer like workshops or events or products it maybe wants to sell, but it doesn't have to. Then we also have an application for Chat and Connect, which is also is federated also, so you can have local groups, you can have global groups on different topics, and you can connect it to Telegram and so on, so you're not logged into this chat ecosystem. And now this graphic, which you have maybe seen before, maybe makes more sense to you. If you think of it, you have here on the right side, the global realm where you collaborate digitally, bits flow globally. In this case, could be the Fab washing machine, where different Fab cities and small and medium enterprises from different Fab cities collaborate. Going to online retailers, displaying that on their shops, giving manufacturing orders to local manufacturers, and compensating the original designers, getting into the local material flow. And here we also have a recompensation method for the designers. So when the Fab washing machine gets repaired in a Fab lab and the customer pays for it, then the designers also get a reward for that, a financial compensation. So they have an incentive for circular design. Okay, so that's basically it for this wireframes from Fab City OS. In terms of the timeline for the Fab City OS or the interfacer project, we'll start working groups in March this year, which Ida will tell you something about. In June, we have a conference on circular design in Hamburg. We have a CAD/CAM developers community session in Hamburg in June also. In August, we have the launch of Fab City OS Alpha. And in October, a workshop during the Fab City Summit on Interface and Fab City OS. In March, the Interfacer Final Conference in Hamburg and launch of Fab City OS Beta. And in 2024, we hope to host the Fab City Summit in Hamburg. You can get involved with us on this. We'll show that later on Element and different platforms. We're also on social media. And thank you very much. And as I said here, you can scan the QR code and get in touch with us. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Benedict and Peter, for the amazing presentation. I think that Wolf has prepared some questions, like some kind of like a small survey before we start the Q&A. I see already that we have some questions here that we want to discuss. So
yes, that's right. Maybe you can already share the link so people can connect to Mentimeters. So just a few words before, my name is Wolf. I'm from Fab City Hamburg also, and working for the outreach and communication of Interfacer. And first, thanks to everybody to listen carefully to the presentation of Interfacer. But also very much thanks to Ida and Carolina to set up this round table. This was a really great job they did. As you may understood, Interface is a quite ambitious project. So before we go into the Q&A session, I would like to make a very short survey on Mentimeter, just to get the temperature of how much our overall project is aligned with the needs and activities from your Fab City. So let me know if how much time does it need to open it and that people are ready. Will you share the screen, Ida? Okay. So I just waited. Okay, I just wait for that you're sharing the screen.
1 second. So here we go. So please join us quickly on Mentimeter.
Okay. So yeah, the first question is about the importance of open source tools and the control of data of your Fab City nodes. If this is a priority, so they're nice to have, or other topics are more important. It's a topic we are considering, or it's a really priority. as you may understood, that open source is a very important issue for the development of Fab City OS, and yeah, just to understand, do we share this idea with other Fab cities?
And the link to Mentimeter is in the chat for those who didn't get that.
Right.
Well, you can
Okay, I think it's getting stable, but it looks quite well. So it's important point, the open source and control of data. That's nice to hear. Okay, let's go to the second question. So this is about the direct knowledge exchange with other Fab cities. As you may understood, that there are different ways of getting in contact to other Fab cities. So yeah, let us know if this is something crucial for you, or is it just nice to have, or not important at all? Okay, it looks also pretty well. I think it's getting stable. So let's maybe switch to the last question. So do you understand your Fab City as a living lab for local production? I hope, like Fab City, a living lab, it's clear what I mean. It's like a space for experimentation on products and services. In that case, yeah, how do you experiment like local production in your city? So yes, it's very important for us. Strategically, yes, but not yet implemented. And other topics are more important. Okay, looks quite balanced, and also good reason to develop a Fab City OS, let's say, to make it easier to implement it. So that's it. Thanks a lot for your quick answers, and now we have more in-depth questions. So please, the panel is open to your questions.
So please just feel free just to turn on your microphone, and let's have a nice conversation, because I see that we have half of the Fab City Hamburg team here. So I think we can provide you all of the answers.
I have a question that, well, I just don't know. Well, when you design some object, in different countries, you have different kind of laws, you have different, well, things to make sure that the object will not explode in your face or will take fire unexpectedly. In that platform, is there like a way or a system to ensure that the design will be good or reflects some respects the laws of how they make? Because your platform is more about like selling and reproducing to be more you know, at the home of the person. So it's a thing to explore and do something, but it's another thing to sell these objects. So if it happens something, is it the responsibility of like more the design team? Is it the responsibility of the manufacturer? Like, is there, I don't know, is there something?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to say something to that. So in one respect, we have a review system on the design. So customers who have bought products from FCOS can just go to the repositories and review their experience in terms of different, whatever they think is important, hopefully circular design principles. But legally responsible is mostly the whoever brings it into, whoever has sold you the product in the end. So that is in that case not Fab City OS, but it is the local manufacturer or the e-commerce store. So we also think that in the first phase with the beta release, yes, there will be the shop functionalities from Fab City OS itself will be used, but then again, it's the one you're buying it from is actually the local manufacturer. But on a later stage, we hope to, by adhering to the open know-how standard, actually, which was also mentioned before, to realize that existing e-commerce stores kind of feed are getting fed from the design commons. So that Fab washing machine you saw, that, for example, Amazon would just present it as a product in its store. And then whoever is, and then it's again a different story, who's like responsible. But to be honest, this is also a question of research we are doing in the DTEC project I mentioned before. We're cooperating with the Hamburg-based law school, and they are looking exactly into this. So we don't have all the answers yet, but we think it's doable.
So you still have like a filter, and then there's more to come. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
I think, Sonia, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to add on Benedict's answer, because we are just at the beginning of some aspects of the project. And yeah, we are working together with this law school that specializes in transnational IP, and we are aware that this is a very challenging task because every country and every context has its own institutional settings and legal frames. And it is maybe one of the biggest challenges when it comes to implementation. We are not there yet, but we are taking that into account. So we will keep you posted on any progress that we make in this field.
So, yeah, I think it's already 9. I think I would like to present the working groups because Benedict mentioned it already. Benedict, if you could post your email address, Wolf and Peter, and maybe all of the Hamburg team in the chat, that all of the audience participants, if they have questions, they can reach out regarding this. That would be awesome. So I'm just going to be very brief, as I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm very excited to announce the first open call for working groups, as Carolina already introduced it, like in the beginning quickly, and Benedict as well in the roadmap of Interfacer. Yeah, we're announcing the first one this year, and basically it's a new format, also like for the Fab City network, and we're starting with the Interfacer working group. So we welcome proposal from all over the world of our Fab City network team, of our nodes and cities, regions, individuals, everyone, to engage in a hands-on discussions. And yeah, to give you just like quickly a brief outline of the working group. Working group is a custom-made hands-on meetings divided on the full stack, basically levels. What you've seen already today also in the Interfacer presentation, also heard on the expert talk, and it's basically different kind of levels of developments. So, and in this working group will be like 6 to 8 different members of the Fab City network participating, and we will meet monthly for these co-creation meetings. So, and I don't want to go like through my presentations because it's gonna take a bit too long, I think. We want to split this working group, this Interfacer working group, in 4 sessions, which will start by March. And therefore, I will send to all of you tomorrow from the Fab City network, obviously, all the details and the link. And we're very happy to receive the applications and to see you then at the working group soon. Yeah. Just like very briefly in 2 minutes, because I wanted to give also like the team of Hamburg with their amazing project a bit more time for the Q&A and also for the presentation. So all in all, thank you so much for today's amazing expert talk, Alysia, Enrico, and Emilio, and thank you for Interfacer for the amazing presentation. I see you put a lot of effort in the new presentation, really nice. And I hope to hear from you very soon from all of the rest at the open call for the working group of Interfacer. And yeah, I think if Carolina wants to say something, or the team of Fab City Foundation, because I know there's also some of them here, but I would just look up quickly for the link for the working group, because it's already prepared. 1 second.
Ida, sorry, I just shared. I hope I shared the right link for the type form. Is that it?
Let me just, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. No, I would just, from my part, I would just like to say thank you to all of you that were here and participated and made your questions and listened to us, for all the presenters, our experts, and everyone from Fab City Hamburg and Interfacer. Thank you so much. And just to let you know that after the working groups, there are 4 working groups planned. There's going to be a session of the outputs of the working groups for the whole network, so we can present like the results of these discussions and the interaction with the working groups and Interface, and what were the outputs, and we can present to the whole network, so you are updated now what happened this year with the project and the discussion. So yeah, I think from my side, just like a big thank you, and it's very exciting to start the year seeing so many people here with us. So yeah, thank you. See you soon, and also see you in Bali.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Gracias. Chao. Obrigado.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
Gracias. Adiós.
Gracias.
Adiós.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao,
Ciao,
ciao.
ciao. Adios.
Faites au revoir.
Au revoir. Ciao.
Au revoir. Ciao, ciao. Thank you so much.